The Airbus A380 is dead. Production ended in 2021. The 777X won't arrive until at least 2027 at the earliest. And now Emirates is pushing Boeing to build a 470-seat monster called the 777-10, a plane that doesn't even exist yet. And at the same time, Airbus is potentially coming up with its own answer, a stretched A350-2000 that could steal the entire high-capacity market before the Boeing even gets the 777-9 into service. But here's a twist. Emirates once again confirmed it will keep flying the A380 into the 2040s. They're even building an entire engine facility in Dubai just to maintain an aircraft that stopped production 4 years ago. Can Boeing actually stretch the 777X into a true A380 successor, or will Airbus jump in there first with the A350-2000? And is the market finally ready for a new 450 to 500 seat twin jet? To understand, you need to know when Airbus delivered the final A380 to Emirates in December 2021, something unprecedented happened. A capacity vacuum opened up at the very top of the aviation market. Think about what just disappeared. The A380 carried 500 passengers depending on configuration, sometimes even more. The 747-8 Intercontinental is gone, the 777-300ER is aging out of fleets worldwide. Today, the largest aircraft you can order is the 777-9, seating around 426 passengers in a two-class configuration. That leaves a clear hole above 450 seats, a high-capacity gap that no current production aircraft is filling. For most airlines, that's okay, but for Emirates and a handful of other mega carriers operating from slot-restricted hubs like Dubai, London Heathrow and Singapore and Hong Kong, it's not enough. These airports can't add more flights, slots are maxed out, and the only way to grow is bigger aircraft. Emirates operates over 100 A380s with plans to retrofit 110 as part of its fleet modernization. British Airways and Singapore Airlines have 12. These are not vanity purchases. The aircraft are infrastructure solutions to a slot capacity problem that is not going away anytime soon. And there's nothing to replace them. Then, in November 2025 at the Dubai Air Show, Emirates makes a major announcement. They ordered 65 more Boeing 777-9s, bringing its total commitment to 270 aircraft at list prices, a $38 billion order. Absolutely massive. But buried in the announcement is something more significant. Emirates publicly pushes Boeing to launch a feasibility study for the Boeing 777-10. Emirates chairman Al Maktoum does not hold back. He said, "We are keen for manufacturers to build a larger capacity aircraft." He indirectly hints at the A380 cancellation and the major gap in the market. Then Boeing confirms the feasibility study will happen, but is very careful. At the moment, Boeing's priority is to certify the Boeing 777-9, -8 and -8 freighter. Here's what makes it fascinating. Emirates essentially has bought itself a feasibility study with that $38 billion order. They secured conversion rights, meaning they can swap their 777-9 orders to the 777-8 or the hypothetical 777-10 if it ever gets built. Emirates is betting billions that Boeing will eventually need to build a bigger jet, and it's making sure it's first in line when that happens. So what exactly are we talking about here? There are no concrete specifications of the 777-10, but it would include a stretch of the fuselage, most likely to fit around 450 passengers in a two-class configuration. A twin-engine aircraft longer than the A380 or 747-8, this is entirely possible. With some of Emirates' denser configurations, you are looking at 500 plus passengers. One aircraft, half a thousand people. It has been done before, almost. Cebu Pacific fits 459 passengers on the A330-900, which is more than 10 meters shorter than the 777-300ER. But it has an all-economy configuration, no first class, no business class. But here's the key advantage of design. Potentially the same wingspan as the 777-9, the same folding wingtips. It remains Code F gate compatible, meaning it fits at every airport already designed for the 777-9. No A380 specific upper deck infrastructure is required. No special jetways, no gate modification, it just works. and the cabin would need new exit configurations, probably an extra door or two. The mid-fuselage gets an additional cabin zone inserted, 10 abreast, economy remains standard. On paper, it's pretty straightforward. Boeing even mulled so back in 2016, planning a 777-9 stretch with 4 extra rows. But the engineering reality is never straightforward, and that's where things begin to get a little bit complicated. Here's the potential issue: takeoff performance. This could be the 777-10's Achilles heel. Stretch the fuselage and you increase the rotation angle at takeoff. Higher rotation means increased tail strike risk. Boeing already has an electronic tail skid on the 777X, but there are hard limits to what that system can compensate for. Then there's the physics of twin engine certification. For an aircraft this massive, the single engine climb out requirements become extreme. If a 450-seat twin jet loses one engine on takeoff, the remaining engine must still lift the aircraft safely into the sky, maintain directional control, and meet strict performance thresholds over extended distances. The current GE9X on the 777-9 produces 105,000 pounds of thrust. It's already the most powerful jet engine ever built. The engine housings are wider than a 737 fuselage, but for the 777-10 that might not be enough. You need higher thrust, which means either a GE9X upgrade or accepting reduced performance. Higher thrust means reinforcing the engine mounts, and that will add weight. Stretching the fuselage increases wing root loads, requiring structural reinforcement. Again, more weight. The entire wing structure might need beefing up, meaning even more weight. On top of that, Boeing might need to push the maximum takeoff weight higher and adjust the landing gear to handle the extra loads and rotation angles. Every one of these changes will add even more weight and more complexity. The payload range equation starts falling apart. The 777-9 already trades range for capacity compared to the 777-8. The 777-10 would be even more range limited, likely restricted to dense trunk routes under 7,000 nautical miles. You're not going to be flying this thing from New York to Singapore, but Dubai to London, sure. Dubai to Sydney, yeah. And here's the critical point. Boeing is years behind on certifying the 777-9, which will not enter service until at least 2027 at the earliest. The MAX is also under intense regulatory scrutiny. Boeing has to stabilize the 777X program before it can even think about launching a new variant. It's not in a position to take on massive development risk right now. Which raises an obvious question: what is Emirates doing whilst Boeing studies all of this? Well, they're doing something pretty remarkable. They're future-proofing the A380 for at least another 15 more years. During this year's Dubai Air Show, Emirates signed an MOU with Rolls-Royce to build a new Trent 900 engine maintenance facility in Dubai. It's not outsourcing this, they're bringing the entire capability in-house, conducting fan case repairs and scheduled maintenance themselves, potentially starting as early as 2027. More significantly, it extended its Trent 900 total care contract into the 2040s. That's the real story. This isn't a backup plan, this is Emirates telling the world, we're keeping these A380s flying until someone builds us a proper replacement. Think about what this means strategically. Emirates knows no manufacturer is offering a 450 to 500 seat twin jet today. So it's self-supporting the A380's future, it's creating its own aftermarket infrastructure, and really, the airline is buying time. The 777-10 is the closest near-term solution if it gets built. If Boeing can solve the engineering challenges, if it enters service by the mid-2030s, if ever. That's a lot of ifs, so Emirates is hedging with the A380 extension. You see, Emirates' entire network is built around 350 to 600 seat aircraft. Dubai International Airport averages 160 A380 movements per day. That's not a preference, that's an operational necessity driven by slot constraints and passenger demand. If you look at the math on core routes, Dubai to London Heathrow, Dubai to Sydney, Dubai to Singapore, these are all massive premium heavy routes where Emirates competes by offering capacity and frequency. A 777-9 seats 426 passengers in a 2-class configuration. An A380 seats 500 plus in an Emirates configuration. Some welcome more than 600. That's a really big capacity gap. Over a year on just one route, that's tens of thousands of passengers that you cannot carry. Revenue that Emirates will literally be leaving on the table. Without a large capacity jet, Emirates faces 3 problems. First, reduced slot efficiency. It can't just add more flights because airports are maxed out. Second, capacity bottlenecks at Dubai International, which is already one of the busiest airports on Earth. And then third, lower passenger and cargo uplift on every single departure. But you do need to think Emirates will be moving to Dubai's brand new airport, DWC, in the 2030s. This airport will be carrying, I believe, over 200 million passengers per year, potentially more, so their home airport will no longer be slot constrained. This will relieve the pressure a little bit, and it may coincide with a 777-10 variant. But you still need to think airports like London Heathrow, they're years away from expanding, so although there might not be slot constraints at their home airport, overseas at destinations Emirates fly to, A380s would still be better. And also, the 777-10 is not a true A380 replacement. You lose the spaciousness, the upper deck, some of that prestige. Are we going to see Emirates installing showers on their 777-10s? I doubt it. And, this has been such a big marketing play for Emirates that they have showers in first class. They've got a bar on board. When things like this are taken away, will the brand, be impacted? It's not a true A380 replacement. You lose the spaciousness, the upper deck, some of that prestige, but it makes the network math work. And if it doesn't get it, it will be flying 30-year-old A380s in 2040 with nowhere to go. That's the nightmare scenario Emirates is trying to avoid. But there's another player in this game who is not sitting still. At the same Dubai Air Show, Airbus confirmed the company is studying a stretched A350. It is careful not to call it a firm commitment, but it's not hiding it either. The proposal stretched the A350-1000 by adding additional fuselage sections, 9 to 10 meters based on early concepts. This could add about 6 to 8 extra rows, putting capacity at 420 to 450 passengers in a typical 2-class configuration. Airbus commercial CEO argues this gives Airbus a massive advantage. He said, "We have an engine that is certified and flies, and an aircraft that flies and is certified. That is more that can be said about the 777X," he told industry publication Aviation Week. It's a pointed remark aimed at Boeing, whose 777-9 still hasn't entered service despite being announced in 2013. The planned entry into service was 2020, and here's the strategic play. The A350-2000 would be the most fuel-efficient high-capacity twin jet ever proposed. It leverages existing technology, existing production infrastructure, and already has a certified engine. That makes it cheaper and faster to develop than Boeing's 777-10. So really that makes A350-2000 Airbus's direct answer to the 777-10, a high-capacity twin jet built on an already certified airframe. Airbus will want firm commitments before launching. It learned this the hard way with the A380. It's not going to be investing billions without guaranteed orders. So really, I think it's waiting for Boeing to make the first move. But if Boeing does launch the A350-2000 first, it could steal the high-capacity market before Boeing even gets the 777-9 certified. The A350-1000 is finally gaining traction, but it's not selling in 777-300ER numbers. Airbus needs an absolute confidence that a stretch 2000 variant has a solid customer base before it cuts the metal. Emirates President Tim Clark admits he's been in constant contact with Airbus. Skepticism remains. Clark previously said that the Trent XWB-97 engines don't have enough for us for Middle East operating conditions. Hot and dusty environments demand more power, and the environment also makes the engine more fragile. Airbus disagrees. Upcoming upgrades will improve durability without requiring a completely new engine. He also notes that sacrificing some range isn't a problem for some of the airlines, which could be the potential customers. It's a race between two manufacturers who are both playing it cautiously, each waiting for the other to blink, each trying to avoid the financial disaster of launching an aircraft with insufficient demand. And this is not the first time Emirates has tried to force this issue. Years ago, Emirates pushed Airbus for an A380 Neo. Multiple times, Tim Clark said he put forward a design that would be more fuel efficient using modern composite materials from the A350, a redesigned wing, and new generation engines like the Rolls-Royce Ultrafan. It would apply everything Airbus had learned from a decade of A350 development to the A380. It was speculated that if Emirates put $20 billion on the table in orders, Airbus would probably build it. But stalemate. It never happened, no other airlines showed strong interest, and engine makers weren't that keen on developing new power plants for such a niche aircraft. And Airbus had already lost an estimated $25 to $30 billion on the original A380 program. The manufacturer was not eager to throw more money at superjumbos. So the A380 Neo died before it lived. It exists only in presentations and discussions. This failed negotiation explains Emirates' current stance. It does not trust either Boeing or Airbus to deliver a new large jet without enormous external pressure. And that's exactly why Emirates is now applying pressure to both, pushing Boeing on the 777-10 and probing Airbus on the A350-2000. They know neither manufacturer will touch a giant jet again without aggressive customer pressure. The 777-10 and A350-2000 would have some of the lowest cost per seat of any twin jet ever built. They'll both be ideal for mega hub trunk routes with consistent demand. Both planes will fit existing infrastructure, so airlines won't need to invest in ground equipment or training programs. And the belly cargo capacity would be massive, a significant revenue generator for every flight. But here's the reality, the customer base is tiny. Realistically, you're looking at maybe 10 to 20 airlines in the world that could consistently fill a 450 to 500 seat twin jet on enough routes to make a fleet worthwhile. Emirates obviously, Qatar Airways maybe, Singapore Airlines potentially, and a few Chinese carriers like China Southern or Air China, British Airways for sure if it remains slot constrained at Heathrow, Cathay Pacific possibly. That's maybe not enough to sustain a production line. Either Airbus or Boeing would need commitments for hundreds of aircraft to make the business case work, and the engineering risk is enormous. When looking at the 777-10, if the GE 9X needs significant upgrades, development costs will balloon. If structural changes are more extensive than expected, margins will evaporate. And there's also the cannibalization risk. Why would airlines order a 777-9 today if they know a 777-10 is coming in a few years? Boeing could potentially inadvertently freeze the 777-9 sales whilst they study a variant they might never actually launch. But I guess they could tell customers you may be able to switch to this bigger variant if we do launch it, and that's definitely what's happened in the case of Emirates. Launching a new variant during Boeing's financial recovery also adds another layer of risk. Boeing posted a $4.9 billion charge on the 777X program in Q3 2025 due to certification delays and cost overruns. It is still bleeding cash. Starting another major development program right now would be bold. Some would say it'd be reckless. But here is the counter argument. If Boeing doesn't launch the 777-10, Airbus launches the A350-2000 and captures the entire high-capacity market, Boeing will literally get shut out of the segment it pioneered with the 777-300ER. Now let's look at the actual market size. Boeing estimates over 1,000 replacements are coming for 777-300ERs, A380s and other aging wide-bodies over the next 2 decades. But peak replacement demand hits in the mid-2030s through to the 2040s and not today. Emirates extending the A380's life actually supports this timeline. It gives Boeing time to get the 777-10 right if it moves soon. In other words, by nursing the A380 fleet into 2040s, Emirates is effectively bridging the gap until the 777-10 or A350-2000 arrives right on that replacement wave. The replacement cycle tells a clear story. By the late 2030s, the global 777-300ER fleet will be old. Many of those aircraft will be approaching retirement, and the A380 still flying will be ancient by today's aviation standards. Airlines will need new metal, and they'll have no choice. If Boeing launches the 777-10 in the late 2020s, it could enter service by the mid-2030s, and that timing could be perfect to capture the replacement wave. But if Airbus launches the A350-2000 earlier, let's say 2027, 2028, it could dominate the market before Boeing even gets the 777-9 into service. Timing is everything in this business. Launch early without demand and you lose billions, and if you launch too late, your competitor will take the market. Ultimately, the A380 proved one thing: the market for 500-seat aircraft is real, but it's very niche. Maybe 10 to 20 airlines, maybe even less, can consistently fill these planes that are that big. That's not really enough to support two competing programs. The economics do not work. But that could change. Airports are becoming smaller in the sense they're becoming more and more capacity constrained. New airport infrastructure takes ages and airlines are growing much faster. One manufacturer will launch a high capacity twin jet, but probably not both. And the question is, who moves first and who will get it right? Thanks so much for watching. And now the YouTube algorithm is suggesting the video that you'll see on screen right now, and it thinks you'll really like it. So go and check it out.